Interstate 40 cut through New Mexico like a gray scar under the orange twilight sky. Jack Morrison's eyes were fixed on the road ahead, his right hand resting on the steering wheel of the red Peterbilt that had been his home for almost 15 years. The radio played an old Willie Nelson song softly, but Jack barely paid attention. His mind was elsewhere, as it always was at that time of year. It had been 3 years since Sarah left, 3 years since cancer had stolen from her the life they had built together, the modest house in Oklahoma, the plans to travel when he finally retired. Now, all Jack had was the road and the endless cargo deliveries that took him from coast to coast, fleeing the memories that insisted on haunting him. He was 52, with graying hair that was beginning to thin, and a 3-day beard that Sarah often complained about. "You look like a bear," she'd say, laughing, while running her hand over his rough face. Jack hadn't shaved properly since the funeral. He saw no reason to. The sun was low on the horizon when Jack noticed the smoke. At first, it was just a dark, distant line against the orange sky, something that could be mistaken for clouds. But Jack knew that region all too well. New Mexico was in the middle of wildfire season, and what started as a small flame could turn into a raging inferno in a matter of minutes, especially with the dry wind blowing from the desert. He turned up the radio volume, switching to the emergency frequency that truckers use to communicate. Static buzzed, then a tense voice began to speak. "Attention all vehicles on I-40 westbound. There is a large forest fire approaching the highway between miles 256 and 260. Authorities recommend detouring via Route 53. I repeat, active forest fire on I-40. Jack checked his position. He was at mile 254. He still had time to make the detour, but that would add at least 2 hours to his trip. He had a deadline to meet in Flagstaff, but safety came first. He began to slow down, looking for the exit that would take him to the alternate route. That's when he saw the car. A dark blue sedan was stopped on the shoulder of the road about half a mile ahead. The hood was up, and a thin column of smoke rose from the engine. Jack frowned. With a forest fire approaching, this was no place to be trapped. He picked up the radio. Hello. This is Jack Morrison on Channel 19. There's someone stopped at mile 254. It seems their car broke down. Has anyone reported this?" Silence. Then a crackling voice answered. "No, Jack. Most of the traffic has already been diverted." "Do you see anyone in the vehicle?" Jack moved closer, squinting against the glare of the setting sun. Then he saw it, a figure beside the car, a woman, and she was clearly pregnant. "Yes, there is a woman. She is pregnant. I'm going to stop." "No, Jack, there's no time. The fire is moving fast with this wind. The authorities have already been notified." Jack glanced in the rearview mirror. The dark line of smoke on the horizon now looked like a menacing black cloud, growing larger with each passing second. He knew the man on the radio was right. Protocol said not to stop, to get out of the area as quickly as possible. But when Jack looked again at the woman on the shoulder of the road, something inside him rebelled against the idea of simply driving straight through. He thought of Sarah, of the son they never had, of the dreams that died with her. "Screw protocol," Jack muttered, slamming on the brakes. The Peterbilt groaned as it slowed, and Jack maneuvered the large vehicle onto the shoulder, stopping a few yards ahead of the broken-down sedan. He grabbed his portable radio, opened the cab door, and got out, feeling the heat of the asphalt through his worn boots. The woman turned around when she heard the truck stop. She looked to be in her early 20s, with long brown hair tied in a messy ponytail. Her face was red and stained with tears, and one hand rested protectively on her prominent belly. Jack estimated she was at least 7 or 8 months pregnant. Thank you for stopping," she said, her voice trembling. "My car just died, and I can't get it to start again, and there's no cell phone signal here, and I heard on the radio about the fire." "Calm down," Jack said, raising his hand. "What's your name?" "Emily." Emily Torres. Okay, Emily. I'm Jack. We need to get out of here now. Grab your things from the car, just the essentials. You have 30 seconds. Emily nodded frantically and ran to the sedan, grabbing a bag from the back seat. Jack approached the open hood and took a quick look at the engine. He wasn't a mechanic, but he could see that the alternator belt had broken. The car wasn't going anywhere without a tow truck. "Ready," Emily said, returning with her bag slung over her shoulder. Jack guided her to the truck and helped her climb into the passenger cab, something that wasn't easy, considering her belly and the height of the vehicle. Once she was safely inside, he ran back to the driver's side and started the engine, setting the truck in motion. But they hadn't walked even 500 meters when Jack saw something that made his blood run cold. Ahead on the road, there was a police roadblock. 2 New Mexico Highway Patrol cars were positioned across the road, and officers in brown uniforms were diverting traffic to the exit. But that wasn't what worried Jack. It was what he saw beyond the roadblock. A wall of orange and red flames stretched across the landscape, moving toward the highway with terrifying speed. The wind had shifted direction, and the fire, which should have been miles away, was now cutting directly toward I-40. The smoke was so thick it turned the sky into a black curtain. "Oh my God," Emily whispered beside him. One of the officers saw Jack's truck approaching and began waving frantically, indicating the exit. Jack stepped on the gas, but then heard a sound that made his stomach churn. A bang. A loud, deep crack. He glanced in the side mirror in time to see a giant tree, completely engulfed in flames, fall onto the exit ramp, completely blocking the passage. The impact sent embers and debris flying in all directions, and one of the police cars had to quickly back away to avoid being hit. "The exit is blocked," Jack shouted into the radio. "I repeat, the mile 256 exit is completely blocked." The voice that answered was tense. "Jack, you need to go back. Go back to mile 254 and take the previous exit." Jack glanced in the rearview mirror. The smoke behind them was getting thicker by the second. The fire moved in an arc, and he realized with growing horror that they were being surrounded. The previous exit was probably cut off by now, too. "There's no time," Jack said, more to himself than to the radio. Emily was clinging to the dashboard, her eyes wide with panic. "What are we going to do? What are we going to do?" Jack forced his mind to work. He knew that road. He'd driven it hundreds of times. Was there another way out? An alternate route? Then he remembered. About a mile ahead, there was an old service road that the highway workers used. It wasn't marked on any maps, and the entrance was easy to miss, but it led north, away from the direction of the fire. It was a gamble. The road could be in terrible condition, or worse, it could be blocked, but it was the only chance they had. "Hold on tight," Jack said, pressing the accelerator hard. The Peterbilt picked up speed, passing the police roadblock at high speed. Jack saw one of the officers shout something, but the words were carried away by the wind. The smoke was now so thick that Jack had to turn on the headlights, even though it was still daylight. Visibility had dropped to just a few meters ahead. The heat began to seep into the cabin, even with all the windows closed and the air conditioning on full blast. Emily was coughing, and Jack felt his own lungs burning with every breath. Flames were now visible on both sides of the highway, orange and red tongues licking the asphalt. "We're trapped," Emily said, her voice almost inaudible. "We're going to die here." "No," Jack said firmly, though he wasn't sure he believed his own words. "We're not going." He forced his burning eyes to focus on the road, searching for the service road entrance. The smoke was like a living fog, shifting and moving, revealing and concealing the landscape at irregular intervals. Then for a split second the smoke parted, and Jack saw a narrow opening in the shoulder, almost hidden by the burnt vegetation. "There!" he shouted, turning the steering wheel sharply. The truck veered off the main highway, and for a terrifying moment, Jack thought he had made a fatal mistake. The road was little more than a dirt track, barely wide enough for the Peterbilt. Dry branches and bushes scraped against the sides of the trailer, creating a deafening sound. But then they began to distance themselves from the main fire. The road climbed a small incline, and although the smoke was still thick, the flames were no longer visible around them. Jack kept his foot firmly on the accelerator, praying that the road wouldn't end in a dead end. "Are you all right?" he asked Emily without taking his eyes off the road. "I think so," she replied, but her voice was weak. "But Jack, I think I'm starting to have contractions." Jack felt his heart sink. "Contractions? Are you sure?" "I think so. I've never had a baby before, but yes, I think they're contractions, and they're getting stronger." Okay, that's fine. How long until you give birth? How many months pregnant are you?" 8.5 months. It shouldn't be born for another 2 weeks. Jack knew enough to understand that babies don't always follow schedules. And the stress of the situation could certainly induce premature labor. He needed to get them out of there, and fast. The service road continued for another 2 kilometers, winding through rocky terrain. The smoke began to lessen, and Jack finally saw blue sky through the windows. They had made it. They had escaped the encirclement of fire. But when Jack looked at Emily, he saw that her face was contorted with pain. She was clutching her stomach with both hands, breathing in short, rapid bursts. "How long between contractions?" Jack asked. "I don't know. Maybe 5 minutes? They're getting closer." Jack picked up the radio. "This is Jack Morrison. I need immediate medical assistance. I have a pregnant woman in labor. We are on the old service road north of I-40, mile 257. The answer took a moment, and when it came, the voice sounded worried. "Jack, all the emergency crews are dealing with the fire. The nearest hospital is in Grants, about 40 miles to the west. Can you get there?" Jack looked at the dashboard. The truck was 3/4 full. They could make it. "I'll try." "Jack," Emily said, her voice strained, "I don't think we're 40 miles away. The contractions are too close together now." Jack cursed under his breath. He looked around, searching for any sign of civilization, but all he saw was rocky desert and sparse vegetation. Then, on the horizon, he saw something. A small cluster of buildings. It looked like an abandoned gas station, or perhaps an old truck weighing station. "Hold on tight," Jack said, driving the truck toward the construction site. As they approached, Jack saw that it was indeed an old gas station that had closed years ago. The pumps were rusty and the window panes were broken, but the main structure still seemed solid. More importantly, there was a roof over the service area that would offer some protection from the elements. Jack parked the truck as close to the entrance as possible and quickly got out, rushing to the passenger side to help Emily out. She could barely walk, doubled over in pain with each contraction. All right, Jack said, carefully guiding her into the abandoned gas station. There was a small room in the back that had probably once been an office. It had an old desk and a broken chair, but it was the best they had. Jack took off his leather jacket and spread it on the ground. "Lie down here," he said. Emily obeyed, tears streaming down her face. "I can't have my baby here, not like this. I should be in a hospital with doctors and—" "I know," Jack said gently, kneeling beside her. "I know this isn't how you planned it. But sometimes life doesn't give us a choice. Let's do the best we can, okay?" Emily nodded, biting her lip. Another contraction came, and she screamed, gripping Jack's hand tightly enough to leave marks. Jack wasn't a doctor. He had no training in childbirth, but he had watched some documentaries, and Sarah used to watch those baby shows on TV. He tried to remember everything he had seen. "You need to breathe," he said. "Take short breaths when the contraction comes. You're doing it right." "I'm so scared," Emily whispered as the contraction passed. "What if something goes wrong? What if I can't do this?" Jack looked into her eyes, and for a moment, he saw Sarah. He saw the woman he loved, who had always been strong even when she was afraid, and he knew what he needed to say. "You're going to make it," he said firmly. "You're stronger than you think, and I'll be here with you every step of the way. You're not alone." Emily nodded, tears still streaming down her face, but there was determination in her eyes now. The next few hours were the most intense of Jack's life. He did everything he could to keep Emily comfortable, using water from his truck's reserve to cool her down, holding her hand through each painful contraction. The sun had completely set, and Jack used his flashlight to illuminate the small room. Around 10 o'clock at night, Emily was fully dilated and ready to push. Jack could see the baby's head, and his heart was beating so hard he thought it was going to burst. He had no idea if he was doing everything right, but there was no other option but to continue. "Okay, Emily," he said, trying to keep his voice calm. "On the next contraction, I need you to push with all your might. Can you do that?" "Yes," she gasped. "Yes, I can." The contraction came, and Emily pushed with all her might, screaming with the effort. Jack saw more of the baby's head appear, covered in dark, wet hair. "You're doing great. Just one more push. Let's go." Emily pushed again, and this time the head came out completely. Jack carefully supported her with his hands, impressed by how small and fragile she seemed. Another contraction, another push, and suddenly the shoulders slid out, followed by the rest of the tiny body. Jack held the baby in his trembling hands, hardly believing what had just happened. The little one was silent for a terrifying moment, and Jack felt panic rise in his chest. Then the baby opened its mouth and let out a loud, indignant cry that echoed through the abandoned gas station. "It's a girl," Jack said, his voice breaking. "Emily, you have a beautiful little girl." Jack used his shirt to gently wipe the baby's face and wrapped her in his jacket. Then he placed her on Emily's chest, who was crying and laughing at the same time. "She's perfect," Emily whispered, gazing at her daughter's tiny face. "She's absolutely perfect." Jack stepped away, giving them a moment. He left the abandoned outpost and looked up at the night sky. The smoke had cleared enough for him to see stars, thousands of them scattered across the dark sky. He felt warm tears stream down his cheeks. Tears he hadn't shed since Sarah's funeral. "We did it, Sarah," he whispered to the sky. "I helped bring a new life into the world. I hope you're proud." The sound of sirens in the distance caught his attention. Headlights appeared on the dirt road, rapidly approaching. Jack grabbed his flashlight and began waving, signaling his location. 3 vehicles stopped in front of the station: an ambulance, a police car, and a fire truck. Paramedics rushed out carrying medical equipment. "We have a woman who just gave birth," Jack said quickly. "Mother and baby seem to be fine, but they need to be examined." The paramedics rushed into the station, and Jack followed them. They worked efficiently, checking Emily's and the baby's vital signs, cutting the umbilical cord properly, and ensuring both were stable. "You did an excellent job," one of the paramedics told Jack, "especially considering the circumstances. Many men would have panicked." Jack simply nodded, watching as they prepared Emily and the baby for transport. Emily held his hand before being taken to the ambulance. "Thank you," she said, her eyes glistening with tears. "You saved our lives. I will never forget this, never." "What are you going to name her?" Jack asked, looking at the baby's peaceful face. Emily thought for a moment, then smiled. "Sophia, it means wisdom, and I think wisdom has brought us here today. Your wisdom, Jack." "It's a beautiful name," Jack said, feeling a lump in his throat. One of the police officers approached. "Mr. Morrison, we're going to need your statement about what happened today. But that can wait until tomorrow. Why don't you go with them to the hospital? You must be exhausted." Jack shook his head. "I have a delivery to make in Flagstaff. I'm already late." The police officer looked at him as if he were crazy. "Sir, You just escaped a forest fire and helped deliver a baby. I think your company will understand the delay." "Don't worry about me," Jack said, forcing a smile. "I'm fine driving. It's what I do." The officer clearly wanted to argue, but he just sighed and handed Jack a card. "At least call when you get to Flagstaff, so we know you arrived safely." Jack promised he would call and watched as the ambulance drove away, taking Emily and little Sophia to the safety of the hospital. The other emergency vehicles also left soon after, and Jack was alone again at the abandoned gas station, with only the starlight and the distant sound of the wind. He climbed back into the Peterbilt's cab and started the engine. The truck purred softly, ready to continue its journey. But before setting the vehicle in motion, Jack glanced at the passenger seat where Emily had sat just a few hours earlier. The seat was still slightly damp from where she had sweated during labor. There was a small, forgotten baby blanket, probably from her bag. Jack picked it up, feeling the soft fabric between his fingers. For 3 years, he had driven those roads trying to escape the pain, trying to distance himself from the memories of Sarah and the life they should have had together. He had convinced himself that there was nothing more for him in this world but the solitude of the open road. But today, in that abandoned outpost in the middle of nowhere, holding a new life in his hands, something had changed within him. He had felt again. Not just pain and loss, but hope, purpose. The understanding that even in his darkest days, he still had something to offer the world. Jack carefully folded the blanket and placed it in the dashboard compartment. He would return it to Emily when he came back that way, and he would come back, he knew. He wanted to see how Sophia was growing. He wanted to know if Emily had managed to get back home, wherever her home might be. He started the truck, driving slowly down the dirt road back to I-40. The highway was clear now, the fire pushed back by firefighting crews who had worked tirelessly through the night. There were burn marks on both sides of the road, reminders of how close they had come to disaster. But they had survived. Against all odds, they had survived, and a new life had entered the world in the process. As Jack drove through the night toward Flagstaff and the delivery that awaited him, he turned on the radio. The same Willie Nelson song was playing, the one that had been playing when he first saw Emily on the side of the road. But this time, Jack wasn't thinking about the past. He was thinking about the future. Perhaps it was time to stop running. Perhaps it was time to find a place to settle down, to make new connections, to allow himself to live again instead of merely existing. Sarah would have wanted that for him. She would never have wanted him to spend the rest of his life alone on the road, tormented by memories. The sun began to rise on the horizon, painting the sky with shades of pink and gold. Jack lowered his visor to shield his eyes from the growing light and smiled. It was a new day, a new beginning. 3 months later, Jack Morrison was back in New Mexico. He had kept in touch with Emily through text messages and a few phone calls. She was back home in Albuquerque, living with her mother while she recovered and adjusted to motherhood. The baby's father wasn't on the picture, she had explained, but she had a good support network and was doing well. Jack parked his truck in front of a modest house in a quiet Albuquerque neighborhood. He checked the address on his phone one more time, making sure he was in the right place. Then he picked up the small teddy bear he had bought at a truck stop and got out. An older woman, whom Jack assumed to be Emily's mother, opened the door. "You must be Jack," she said, her face breaking into a warm smile. "Emily told me all about you. Please come in." Jack entered and was led into a cozy living room. Emily was sitting on the sofa, holding Sophia, who had grown considerably since that night at the abandoned gas station. The baby had chubby cheeks and large, curious eyes that fixed on Jack when he entered. "Jack," Emily said, her face lighting up, "I didn't believe you when you said you'd be in the area. I thought you'd forgotten about us." "Forget about you?" Jack said, sitting down in the chair Emily's mother offered. "Impossible. How is my little Sophia?" "She's perfect," Emily said with obvious maternal pride. "Gaining weight, sleeping well most of the time. The doctor said she's a miracle considering the circumstances of her birth." "She's a fighter," Jack said, "just like her mother." They talked for over an hour, catching up. Emily told Jack about the challenges of motherhood, the sleepless nights, but also the unexpected joys. Jack spoke about his travels, but also about the decision he had made. "I'm going to retire," he said. "After 15 years on the road, I think it's time to stop. I've already bought a small house in Oklahoma, near where I grew up. I'm going to try to figure out what it's like to have roots again." "That's wonderful, Jack," Emily said sincerely. "You deserve to have a home, a place to belong." Before leaving, Jack held Sophia for the first time since that night. The baby looked at him with big, serious eyes, and then her face broke into a toothless smile. Something broke and mended itself simultaneously in Jack's chest. "You take good care of your mom," he whispered to Sophia, "and be brave. You've already started your life with an adventure. I'm sure there are many more waiting for you." When Jack returned to his truck, he felt lighter than he had felt in years. The weight he had carried since Sarah's death hadn't completely disappeared, and he knew it never would. But now it was different. It was no longer a burden holding him back. It was a part of him, a reminder of the love he had known, and a reminder that he was capable of loving again. He started the Peterbilt's engine and looked one last time at the house where Emily and Sophia were beginning their new life together. Then he set the truck in motion, driving towards the sunset, towards Oklahoma, towards an uncertain but possibility-filled future. The road stretched ahead, as it always did. But this time, Jack Morrison wasn't running away. He was going home.